Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks fans of all ages, welcome back to probably the most despondent 12 Talk podcast you will have heard or seen from Mitch and I this season. It had to come, didn't it? We were riding high, we had our low, then we came back up against the Falcons and thought maybe, just maybe, our trajectory's on the upward slope. Yeah, that was quickly squashed. So for those you may be joining for the first time, those you're returning, my name's Josh, and can I point the right way, Mitch? Boom.
Got it.
See, one thing has gone right for a Seahawks-related thing this week. I got the point direction right.
Nice.
And this is my my podcasting partner in crime, Mitch. How you doing?
Hello.
So can anyone notice something different about Mitch? It's the first thing.
Well, we got beaten so bad my hair fell out. So I'm a bold man now. that's what's happening.
You're full Britney.
Yeah. Slap it now.
It was good, mate. It was good. You know, at the height of 7'5" or whatever you are, I saw you walking down a dark alley or outside a pub. I'm like, I'm not messing with that. So
someone at work said I now look like a Russian war criminal. So
yeah, it is a little bit extra from a James Bond movie, henchman style.
Yeah. I need a wrinkly bold cat to match, and then I'm good.
So we're going to get into the good evening, everyone that's joining us. We're going to get into this this Seahawks versus Bills game. We're going to deviate from our usual structure with the 12 talking points because I feel there may be a bit more to discuss than just 12. So we've got our Discord member musings. We had some pretty good ones from them, and any of your comments or questions, by all means, fire them in the comments. Mitch will be looking out for them, and we'll be throwing those up as well. Shall we get into this, Mitch? Shall we just dive in? I'm ready and raring to go, and I need to let my depression and anger out. Let's use this as some group catharsis. It's like therapy. Let's do it, dude. And we are back. Mitch.
Yeah.
Well, we all know why we're here. We all know what we're talking about. Thank you to everyone who's sort of filtering in and joining us, whether you're from the UK, the US, or anywhere around the world. We appreciate it. We're going to get into this. I'll start this pod off with what's probably going to be the high point, which is talking about our partners. As we are the official UK Seahawkers podcast. Always very thankful to have been asked by them to help promote them as a community Seahawks podcast by 12s, for 12s, with 12s. This is what we're all about. I am on the ball with the point in today. Look, I knew that as well. Yep. I'm going to, you know what?
There's a career for you as an air hostess yet, I
think. Here. There you go. I'm going to come away from this pod having vented loads of anger and frustration. I'm feeling a bit proud of myself for actually knowing my directions. But yeah, if you want to become a member of the UK Seahawkers, it is £12 for an individual membership for the year, £20 for a family of 4. You get access to the social events. So next year's meetup, we have an annual one. It's in Glasgow. If anyone knows a good sports bar, let us know. You get 10% discount on the pro shop. You get a host of goodies, which I'll show you shortly. And you get a chance to win game day field passes as well. And goodies for this year are your wristband. We got a fantastic throwback patch. You get your membership card. And this year we've got an RFD card as well. And here are some of the fantastic members that I managed to meet in London with my little brother Harry whilst we were at the Wembley game. Next year, I think a 12 talk outing may be on the cards where we'll get everyone there en masse, especially members of our Discord. And I'll introduce you to him properly very shortly, but we have partnered up with the Robin Cancer Trust. They are the UK's germ cell cancer community. For November, you can join the big ballsy run to help raise awareness. Choose 10K, 50K, 100K, walk it, run it. Doesn't matter. You're going to help raise awareness for a very, very worthwhile cause. Before I get into the RCT, we'll shout them up very shortly. Let's just dive into this game because I have a feeling we're going to reach a peak of anger where we'll need a break and we'll need someone like the RCT just to bring us back down to earth. So, talking about the game, here's a score: 31-10. Seahawks got absolutely demolished by the Buffalo Bills, and that is basically all I've got time for showing with that. Now, the Twitter sphere, X sphere, whatever it was, Seahawks Twitter was rife with a lot of comments, observations, and whatever else. Mitch, what are your feelings on yesterday's game?
I feel like whenever we'd lost this season, we'd been in the game. We could at the end of the game, we could say, all right, we've lost, but we were in the fourth quarter, we were still in with a chance. We were blown out in this game. And when I look back at the game as a whole, we struggled to establish the run because we got dominated at the line. We struggled to get any kind of pressure on Josh Allen because we were dominated at the line. So the D-line and the O-line were comprehensively beaten on both sides of the ball, and it just stopped us being able to establish any kind of game plan on D or offense. So that, for me, isn't necessarily a personnel problem. That, for me, is coaching. The game plan, the plays called, the inability to make adjustments meant that we were just out of this game all the way through. And you could look at it and say, okay, well, if we hadn't had those disastrous moments with Connor Williams in the red zone twice in the same game with the snap to the moon and standing on Geno, if you could look at that and say, okay, well, if we'd got touchdowns there, that's 14 points, and then it's 31, 20, 24, right? But we're in the game, you know. However, you still need to be able to adjust game plans to the game you're in. And I felt like when things were going wrong, there was no uptick or change or adjustment to anything. It felt like we just played a losing game, both sides of the ball from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the first offensive series, the first drive for the Seahawks, spelled out exactly what the game was going to be. I think I tweeted out from our account, "Oh, I can see how this game is going to go," and it just that for me spelled out how we were going to try and play this game. It baffled me. 3 passes. It was 2 of them batted down by Greg Rousseau in one drive. Now, after the first one, I'm not being funny, but if I'm Geno, I'm going, well, I'm not throwing that way anyway. But he did it again. And he just had a brain fart. And there seemed to be continuous brain farts all the way through this. I have banged the table all season about the running game and trying to run Ken Walker up the middle. That is not his game plan. I'm sorry. I don't care who says it. I don't care who says, oh, but it doesn't matter who you're running up where with that O-line. No, it does. If you've got a bulldozing runner like Charbonnet, run him up the middle, because regardless if the O-line's bad, he's still going to make you more yards than the slighter, more elusive runner than Ken Walker. The game plan there was awful. We didn't seem to realize that without someone like DK, you can't just lob it up. You can't just throw long balls all the time. Short intermediate routes, trying to get people in space. There were some awful reads by Geno as well, where there was one where he tried to squeeze it into triple coverage on JSN. And I don't know who the other receiver was that was wide open. probably 10 yards, like to the on his. Well, as we're looking at him on the right, it's baffled me defensively. Oh, run gate, we just can't stop the run. Can't stop the run. Secondary, apart from that Josh Jobe interception, cack. Just big thumbs down from me. Yeah, I'm gonna. This isn't like proper swearing, but the performance on a whole was piss poor, and it stunk of just bad game planning and preparation. Now, I'm from an army and police family. There is a saying which is it's the 7 P's. Prior planning and preparation prevent piss poor performance. Now, the prior planning and preparation, I don't know what they'd been looking at on tape or what they thought they could do against this Bills team, but it was wrong completely. And that really rings alarm bells for me. Sorry. First little rant done. Go on, Mitch.
No, I was. I do agree. I feel like the team weren't sufficiently prepared for this game, which leans into exactly what you're saying. I don't. But also the point I was making prior to you making yours there was that there was no sort of adjustment to the game we found ourselves in either. So, all right, I agree with you that our game plan wasn't right, and also Grubb's game plan on offense has rarely been right from the off. And this was another one where that was the case. Although in this game there was no shuffle of of game plan as that I could see that certainly none that worked. So yeah, no, I think the planning for this game wasn't great. I think we potentially underestimated just how good the Bills were going to be because they didn't get out of second gear and they kept us at arm's length. And I know for a certain to a certain extent, we stopped ourselves in the red zone. Like as emphatically as you can stop yourself, we did. But let's also not forget that we struggled to get the Bills off the field while they had drives with 2 or 3 false starts. If you can avoid a defense taking you off the field while going backwards for 30 yards on one drive and still scoring a touchdown at the end of it, we are dramatically inept at stopping a team. That's where we found ourselves. That's where we found ourselves yesterday. That's the reality check. They'd helped us as much as any team could help you on a drive, and we still couldn't get off the field. And that for me points to a number of coaching problems. I do still have faith in this team of coaches. Weirdly, like maybe that shouldn't be weirdly. We've still got a decent record this year. We're 4-4 in the first year of what was it, 26 new coaches. That actually isn't bad. The problem I have is the manner of which we lost this game. I've mentioned the fundamentals that were lacking in previous pods, so I wouldn't harp on too much. But there were a number of things which should be unnegotiable that were going wrong here. One of the bright spots for me, and some people might think this is a weird bright spot, but Jaron Reed holding
Derek Hall to account
to account for a reckless and dangerous moment at a really bad time for us. I don't think it would have been just, but he could have been removed from the game for targeting with that hit, I think.
Yeah.
And
just very quickly, I need to caveat this because there's a lot of people in the chat as well, and we're going to get to yours because, like I said, no 12 talking points. We'll pull up your comments. To caveat this, Mitch and I have said from the start, we've said this on every single pod, that we know this is not an instant fix. This is going to be a process. It will take time. So as much as we're going to blow off steam on this pod, and we will point out things that are wrong and things that are worrying us, please, everyone watching and listening, bear in mind that this does not mean We are calling for coaches' heads, quarterbacks'
Mm.
heads, GM's heads, anything like that. This is purely us reacting to a poor showing from the Seahawks and trying to bring it back down to earth. As I said, cathartic. This is going to be a little therapy session for us and our listeners and watchers in the live. And we will get a lot of your points of frustration and comments in very shortly. Sorry, Mitch, I had to put it in there before someone
No,
goes, oh, they've changed. They've become a negative pod.
it's a key. No, it's a key. It's a key point to make. But yeah, no, I thought that that moment was it was reckless. And I know when you're up against it and you're struggling to make plays, he saw an opportunity to get a sack in a game where we didn't have any, but he's gone in, led with the helmet, straight into Josh Allen's helmet while he was arguably defenseless. And Jaron Reed's grabbed hold of him on the pitch, on the sideline, and tried to talk some sense into him. Like, okay, you're trying to make a play, but if you get ejected from this game and give away a penalty and they score a touchdown, that's so much worse. He needs to be. He's got all the talent in the world and all the physical, talent and ability. He needs to take these moments and learn from them. And Jaron Reed made sure he would not forget that error. And I rate it. As leadership, we are lacking it. And in that moment, Jaron Reed absolutely personified what we are lacking. So that was a rare bright spot for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've banged the drum for Derek Hall. I've said he's got potential to be a future captain on this team. I think that was just pure recklessness.
Mm.
It stunk of frustration at not
Did
being
you
able
think
to
he could have
get
been
through.
ejected there for targeting?
100%, because the ball had left like Allen's hand. What, a good 4 or 5 seconds?
Yeah,
Well, maybe
I don't think
maybe
he's that.
two,
I
two or
don't think
three.
he's that kind of player at all. And
No,
perhaps his character went for him in that moment. He doesn't have a history of dirty hits or anything like that.
no.
But I think if you weren't considering his character in his previous record, if he'd ever been ejected for anything else, I think that's another ejection.
Yeah, 100%. It would have been. I mean, so I think this sort of boils down to the frustration we felt as fans. Obviously, the players felt it too,
Yeah.
because they weren't hitting home with anything. They weren't getting home on the pass rush. They weren't stopping the run. They weren't able to stop these short intermediate routes where, Allen was just picking out Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman. I picked them both up in fantasy, but I hated seeing them scoring points against us. But that's the type of player he is. He, as a quarterback, Allen can pick players out like that and make them super effective. But we just couldn't game plan for that. I think the frustration from Hall, it can be seen one of two ways as a player. It's like, do I want to send a message to say, I am still here, I am still coming for you? Or is it just, I've had enough of this, I don't care what's happening, I am going to just hit him? I think it was more the latter. And I think the frustration boiled over there, and you can see it when him and Reed basically came to blows. But like you said, and we said this on our pod with Rob, there's a distinct lack of solid leadership in the team. But I think Jaron Reed showed what kind of leader he is. He wasn't afraid to hold someone to account there and then.
Mm.
And even when they're chirping on the sideline, he's still holding them to account as violently as needs to be as the big dog on that D line. But then after that, after they both stepped away for a minute, he did the big brother thing of putting his arm around him and having that adult chat with him about why he can't do that, what the team's aiming for. And it did seem to calm him down. You could see that as well. It was a testament to Hall's sort of maturity. Like, he didn't start chirping back at that point. He just stood there, took it, and listened, which I thought spoke verses for him. But I think the frustration was evident from everyone. I mean, you look at Gino on his interception. He came off,
Mm.
and DK put his arm around him, and you see Gino on the sideline crying. That for me was more alarming, because I'm thinking, you're the leader of this team, and I think you said it on a couple of pods ago. We'd never see something like that from Russ. Russ would always be bigging the man up. Trying to be like, right, that one didn't go right. We're going back for the next one. We're just going to keep coming. But Gino really seems at the moment to be letting games get on top of him.
For what it's worth, I might have a number 3 jersey back there, but I'm not a huge Wilson fan. But the one thing I would say for him is what I'd said on that pod, which was he was always very quick to, in the moment in the game, put it away, put whatever mistake it was away, rally the troops and get on with it, the next time. From what we hear now, post his time in Seattle, his relationship with the team outside of game time was really difficult or really distant. But on game day, on that sideline, he was an absolutely superb leader when it came to just putting everything behind and just focusing on the next drive, When you see Gino come off, he's either and this isn't I'm not having a pop at Gino. I'm genuinely not having a pop at Gino because I really do rate Gino and what he's done so far this year. But there does seem to be an overly emotional thing. Do you remember when Pete Carroll caught his eye when he was going off a few years ago, probably last season actually, when Gino was upset about a decision, and Pete Carroll did that kind of gesture to him, and he just immediately snapped it back. I feel like he needs that from a coach, whereas I don't think Russ ever needed that. So maybe there is some emotional what's the word? So like a slight lacking emotional intelligence with him.
Yeah,
maybe
on some level. Yeah, I think the emotional intelligence part is an interesting conversation to have as well from someone like a quarterback, where as much as, like you said, you've got Wilson's jersey behind you, I've made no bones about the fact that Russ as a person irritated the hell out of me. I'm not a rah person. I like to keep it positive, but I keep it realistic as well. And if ever when I was ever captain in a sports team or when I'm coaching, I'll be as positive as possible. But there comes a point where you do need to bring realism into it and say, guys, this is not good enough. We need to do this. Not, come on, yeah, we can do this. That doesn't matter about that. Let's move on to the next one, because that's not how everyone works. Gino seems to be lacking that barrier. He puts it all out there, which is admirable. Grown man, professional sportsman, messes up and people can see it. But he needs to rein that in as well for the sake of his team, because if you're looking at a perceived leader and that perceived leader has made an error and then he's on the sideline moping like a teenager, head in his hands, hitting his head with the surface or crying, you're looking at him thinking, dude, are we okay? Is this team okay? Are you okay? What are you going to do in the next drive? Are you going to be able to lead this team to a win in the fourth quarter, or in the second half? Anything? It was just it was painful to watch as a Seahawks fan, as a sportsman, sports coach, because you start thinking, does he need more help? Because he's the senior quarterback. He's the offensive leader. He should be the one that can, package those emotions, just stuff them down till the end of the game. Then he can go home and have a cry or, scream into a pillow or whatever does it for you. But it's becoming more abundantly clear that that's not who he is. He just needs to be, in my opinion, a bit more level in these games and be like, damn it, you give yourself a second to be angry and then let it wash over you and then move on. And it just didn't happen. And I think that sort of bleeds into the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think my final comment on this is just that if there's one thing it really does show with Gino, it's just how much he cares. Like it might have been alarming to see, but it really did stamp just how much he cares about making something of the end of his career, making sure it's with us, trying to do the best he can for this team. And I think he's struggling a little bit in this game. Let's not forget that he is still leading the NFL in yards. Like, he's having a good year. I think there are just games where, with the level of protection he has and some of the play calling, he is struggling to affect the game in the way he wants to, and he's making mistakes. So I think
I'll give you that.
He's not being able to put out there what he really, really wants to do, and he really does clearly want to do it because he cares that much. Like, but it would, like you say, alarming's the right word. I was alarmed seeing that from him.
The thing that this will be my last piece on this before we move on to the next bit. But if you're looking at your team, you're looking at a team like Buffalo, who, let's face it, before they drafted Josh Allen, were pretty inconsequential. But they got their guy, and he's transformed the whole franchise, and people believe in Buffalo now. As a new coach, are you going to be looking at Geno going, look what Josh Allen managed to do, and they weren't at full tilt, and then Geno comes up against the odds, but he can't turn it around. He comes back onto the sideline crying. It's going to start raising question marks. And I'm not aboard the get rid of Geno train, but I'm aboard the coach's hat on. Do I need to start paying more attention to this? And is that really going to impact my decision to have Geno next season as my starter? And this is where I think this is a good time to play what I alluded to before the pod whilst we were off air. So all over Twitter, X, whatever you call it, last night, were the people throwing around it's the coaching, it's the GM, it's the players, rah, 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 rah. Trade them all. And we did have a comment here from Jonas. Hi, Jonas. Can we put the trade DK talk to bed, even though he might not have changed the outcome yesterday? He was sorely missed. Completely agree. And for those who haven't, you can check out Jonas was on the Hawk Zone Rundown pod with our friends Bryce and Ryan as the pre-game. Predictions may not have been 100%, but hindsight's 2020. Let's play. Would teams trade for? I'm going to give you the names of our sort of starting team and say, you can say, do you think they hold trade value at the moment? You don't have to tell me what type of trade value, but do you reckon a team would, if they found out that someone was going on the trade market, if they were on the block, would someone swing in? Charles Cross.
100%.
Yeah. Laken Tomlinson?
No.
Connor Williams?
Yes.
Christian Haynes, Anthony Bradford?
Haynes, yes.
Bradford.
But I don't think at this stage we'd recoup what we spent.
Yeah.
Just because he hasn't been able to come in and show enough or have enough snaps at this level.
Yeah. And then Bradford, I sort of package them both together because they're sharing. Bradford.
No.
There you go.
Well, next, I think you could get a trade partner for Bradford, but it'd be next to nothing. It would be like a future sixth or something.
Yeah, he'd be a backup right guard for someone else. All right, I'd say Abe Lucas, but that's pointless because he's not been playing for 2 years now.
A fit Abe Lucas, you could arguably say that he'd get more interest in a trade than Charles Cross for me.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on Cross. I just think that Cross has slightly underperformed his initial trade, his initial draft capital spent, and Abe Lucas, with what he'd done so far in the NFL, has gone the opposite way. I feel like, and also then you factor in what they're being paid, and although it is last year for, I think,
All right, Geno Smith.
Yeah, he does. I think there's more teams than you'd think that would look for him as a bridge quarterback. I mean, this is the guy that's leading the league in yards, and he's been there and done it. You only need an injury to your starting quarterback, and suddenly Geno becomes a really viable option. I don't think you get much for Geno. Maybe a third this year and a future something, maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Let's not forget as well. The money that Geno's on as well is worth trading for. Like it's not. You're getting above average quarterback play play for below average quarterback pay. So there's a certain amount of value to be had there as well.
All right, let's rattle through the rest then. K9.
100%.
Yep. Charbonnet.
Yes, less than we got him for though.
Yeah. DK.
Yes.
Yeah. Tyler Lockett.
No.
JSM.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, and then we'll go Noah Fant.
Yeah. No offense, an awkward one, but yeah, we're rattling through, so I won't stop you there.
Yeah.
But I already have.
Let's go Brown. Pharaoh Brown.
No.
No. Barner.
Yeah. When I say no to some of them are just because they're on 1-year deals and they're veterans.
Yeah.
There's no point giving away capital where if you've got genuine interest in a player,
no.
you can be picking them up. But
I take
the point. Like, what's the perceived value of these players?
But
Laken Tomlinson,
also,
I think, was a declining. It was a declining thing anyway because of his performance with the Jets the year before.
Yeah.
Some people wanted to put that down to the quality of that Jets O-line, meaning that he stunk the place out because he was surrounded by mediocrity. I really hope our line isn't as bad as that Jets line from last year, but I'm not seeing an awful lot to convince me it's not. So
we live in hope.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the offense. So out of that offense, you have said one wouldn't get a trade partner.
2.
Everyone else 2. Okay, everyone else would.
Tomlinson and Brown, I think, from memory.
Okay. There you go. So that's pretty much our whole offense, apart from the left guard position, where people would want to trade for. So they would get into someone else's team. So I think we can quite happily say that, barring the offensive line struggles that we're having at the moment, the offense is a good unit. Yeah?
Yeah.
Defense. Okay. Let's start. Marfay.
Yeah, I think all 3 of the premium edges on our roster would be trade candidates.
Marfay, Hall, Nwosu.
Yeah.
Draymond Jones.
No.
No.
Purely because I don't think anyone wants to pick up his contract. We've overpaid. We've overpaid on his upside and got next to nothing back.
Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
And Byron Murphy. That's a yes. Someone that's pick him up anyway. I'll just put words into your mouth there because we all know that. Right, then let's rattle through the rest then. So we've now got Dotson.
Yeah.
Ernest Jones.
Yep.
And then you look at Love.
Yeah, definitely for Love.
I'm not going to class Jenkins. I'll say Bryant.
I think Rayshon Jenkins would have trade value, I mean, he's injured, but yeah, I think so. The only point we get to with that defense where I don't think we have some trade value is some of the depth pieces in the cornerback room.
Yeah, and this is a point I'm going to get to at the end of this, and then we've got Woolen and Witherspoon. If you call them outside corners.
Yeah.
Trey Brown, that was last year of his rookie deal, so probably got a trade value because someone would pick him up in free agency anyway this year, unless they were desperate. But if you look at that as a starting squad, every single member of that squad, someone would trade for and probably have them in a starting berth, which means they're starters in the NFL. The team, the players, and people need to get off this bandwagon. The players are not the issue right now. We have got the players. The issue we've got is, and this is like you said it off air as well, Dan Viennes has sort of said it, we're a badly coached team. I don't think we're a badly coached team. I think we're a team with new coaches trying to instill new philosophies, new schemes, and new ethos. And the players haven't either bought in properly or understood what it is. I think there's people like Grubb who are still trying to get to grips with how the NFL works from a defensive point of view. I think this is where you need to have someone like a Dirty or a McDonald sit with him and have basically what Green Bay have done with Salah. Get defensive minds, work with the offense to say, if they show you this, you do this. And vice versa. I think that's the crux of it at the moment. People calling for John Schneider's head, get in the bin. He's one of the best GMs in the NFL. Fair play, he has made some awful trades. You said about Draymond. We've seen the Jamal Adams trade, but the Jamal Adams trade, when Jamal Adams was healthy in that first season, looked like an absolute steal. But unfortunately, his value declined with the injuries. It could happen to anyone. You could be the most winningest GM in any sport. You make one bad signing, one bad trade that's consistently injured, doesn't perform, name's mud. I just think, again, and we'll go back to the caveat I said earlier, this is going to take time. I'm trying to build myself up with some positivity here. Time.
Yeah, I can't let some of those things go. I have to say something. Yeah. So John Schneider, for all of the things I love about him and the good things he's done, there are things that he has not been able to do for a really long time. Reading Rob Staten's it was on his blog about how to fix the Seahawks, which is a fascinating read. He's got some really good insights in there.
Seahawksdraftblog.com.
Seahawksdraftblog.com. He made the point that since, I think it was in the last 7 years, we have renewed one drafted offensive lineman. Justin Britt, who isn't going to go down as one of the greats either. He was just that he was a serviceable lineman and he was worth the money that he was going for. His market value was acceptable. That's really bad, and that's never changed. So that I wanted to pick that up. As much as I love John Schneider, there are things about his tenure which are serious red flags. And if you can't pick up good offensive linemen in the draft, surround yourself with personnel who have got a history of doing it. Who drafts well? Okay. Who's picked? Who's been scouting that guy? Okay. Welcome to the Pacific Northwest. Come and help us out. Go find those people that have done it well. If you can't, I know it admits you can't do it, but go and find people or learn from them. So that is one thing I wanted to add there. I don't think you're wrong in what you say, but I do think that things like that need to be acknowledged with him. And regarding not being a well-coached team, I feel like we're being set up incorrectly and at times struggling to adjust. And also, whilst I agree with you that a lot of our players, if not all of our players, are starting quality NFL players on any roster or most rosters, maybe on some contenders, they're depth pieces, but on a lot of rosters, I still think that if you're good enough to play in the NFL, but you don't show up repeatedly, you can blame coaching on some level, but you also have to blame the players' mentality and drive and just attitude in general. There's a certain amount of that to fall on the players too. So I haven't seen an acceptable performance this weekend from my team. And I would like to think the coaches would try and get more out of the players. And I'd like to think the coaches look at themselves and acknowledge that they have not succeeded in getting that team ready for this weekend.
Yeah, I agree completely. And this is where we talked about that steep learning curve. That's going to happen all season, where we're going to come under fire against some of these good teams, and it's happened. I just have to I had to get it out there because there are so many people who are putting so many fingers to blame, and these are usually people that haven't been involved in any sort of coaching or sporting environment. So it's all well and good saying this and screaming for people's heads, trade DK, trade Gino, get rid of the coaching staff, get rid of the GM. If you've never been in a position that they're in, just zip it. Let it play out. It's frustrating having a team that isn't winning when you feel they should be. Mitch is an Arsenal fan. He's seen that happen enough. I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan in football. I haven't seen us win properly since 1994, 1995. And it's absurd to think that in this age of instant gratification, as Gary said actually on our pod, and he said it frequently in our Discord, this age of instant gratification where people think it's win now all the time. You get a new coach, you get a new player, that's it, you are set. Does not work like that. We need to get off that horse. You just need to temper your expectations. I think we've said this on every single pod. Temper your expectations, and the ride is going to be bumpy as hell for this season and maybe next season. But we need to give it time to mature, to grow. You know, you don't press a fine wine and drink it as soon as you put it in the bottle, do you? You have to let it mature.
I think one thing that annoys me a little bit, and it's in the background, it's not like a foreground annoyance, it's like in the background, just nibbling away. I'd almost rather lose 2 games and win 1 than win a game, lose a game, because we're going to end up draft picking right in the middle of the pack. Just we're going to achieve nothing with the record that we get, and we're going to pick right in the middle of the pack because we decided to have 1 good game for every terrible one. That's literally that's literally what's going to annoy me more than anything else.
It's the Pete Carroll, like it's just that chasm that he left us in. It was like Pete Carroll, you know, he's the winningest coach we've ever had, brilliant. But then the last couple of seasons where we've just had that 9-8 record, just missed playoffs, just done this, and it sits you squarely in the middle of the draft order. So you're not quite up there to pick the blue chip talent. You're just after them. And at that point, you look at everyone going, well, none of you are worth a pick where we are now. So we'll trade back and then potentially miss someone who could be blue chip. And it's just an awful place to be in. I think we've done a lot of talking. We've had a heck of a lot of comments come in from people watching. So thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in. Mitch, do you want to have a flick through and just see? We do have our Discord member musings. So anyone, whilst Mitch is flicking, I'll drop this in there, as the king of the Discord is also doing the comments that are coming through on YouTube and X. We do have a Discord. The majority of the members and watchers of this pod are in that Discord. We love it. It's had some fantastic rants, fantastic raves. We've had some brilliant people join. We've got football analysts. We've got other podcasters in there, all with a wealth of experience and opinions. You can join. Mitch will pop the link in the comments. If not, it's the pinned post on our X. By all means, come in, join us. Great time. And if you're new to this pod, thank you very much for having a look at us. Feel free to like, sub, hit the notification bell to find out when we're going live. You can also, by all means, you can send us messages, whatever you need to do. If you want to appear on the pod, we are a podcast by 12s, for 12s, with 12s, and our co-hosts are usually yourselves. Unfortunately, our co-hosts for this pod were too sick after the performance to want to come on and discuss it, which, you know, I can kind of understand. Before we go any further, I'm just going to give you a quick shout out to our charity partner first. So here's about the RCT, and then we'll come back with some comments from you guys.
I want to take a minute just to introduce you our charity partner for the pod, the Robbing Cancer Trust. The Robbing Cancer Trust is the UK's germ cell cancer community. For those who don't know what germ cell cancer is, that is testicular and ovarian cancer, and the RCT was set up following the family tragedy which sadly saw them lose their son and brother to germ cell cancer. Germ cell cancer is something that can affect anyone at any time, and the RCT, Robbing Cancer Trust, do a fantastic job creating awareness through the various campaigns like Talking Bollocks and Not Overreacting. If you or a member of your family have been affected or think you may be affected by it, please visit their website, therobbingcancertrust.org, to see how you can spot the signs, how you can manage it, and become part of the community. And if you'd like to help fundraise or give anything to them, by all means, that would be absolutely fantastic.
There you go. And that's me, come cropper to my crap editing. Mitch, what is the first comment you would like to throw up before we we'll get through these and then we'll go on to our Discord member musings. Let's go.
Yeah, there's one here that's really going to rub some salt into the wounds, and I'm just here for it. So this one from True Drew. Damian Lewis,
I saw this before.
And actually, I'm going to follow that by. There was a comment.
And you're right,
here.
Drew. I was gutted when we got rid of him, even though he was converted from right guard, where I thought he excelled in his rookie season, to left guard, and I thought he was possibly one of the best left guards for a while. As soon as we got rid of him to the Panthers, I hung my head. Go on, what else we got, Mitch?
We had a comment from I think it was from Jonas. I think it was from Jonas Meister, basically saying that about John Schneider saying that guards were overvalued.
God.
So I think going from
overvalued and overpaid.
Yeah, here we go, found it. So as much as he loves John Schneider, saying that the guard position is overvalued before the season and seeing how bad our guards are, it's kind of a detriment. Yeah, I completely agree. Those two comments go hand in hand. Although I'm not sure we could have afforded to pay that. Because he did go for a lot, didn't he? Wasn't it 12 million a year? Was it 10?
It was a decent wad of cash that he went for.
It was. It was. I don't think we're ever going to pay that.
That's the value, though. That's the perceived value of him. And now he's one of the best left guards in the league. Do you think, whilst we're talking about the guards and the O-line, after John Schneider's comments, seeing how this game's going at the moment, how the Seahawks the offense can't get flowing because there's so much pressure on Geno most of the time. Do you think there's going to be a very honest conversation between Mike Mack and John Schneider in the offseason saying, look, John, I know your perception on guards being overpaid. I also know what I want from this team. We need to pay some guards. We need some good guards to make this offensive line and, by sort of extension, the offense run.
I don't know. I think there's I think general managers in general have their way of building their roster. They have their rules, they have their beliefs, their ethos. John Schneider has his own, and he's taken us to the highest heights, but then you could say the same of Pete Carroll's defense, and that got thrown out, so is the modern day way of building rosters in this league, has it changed so much that John Schneider's stuck in his ways that are no longer effective? Or have we just not had the luck of the green, the rub of the green on a number of decisions that have set us back, like Jamal Adams? Have there been a few key bad decisions across the years that have tied our hands and haven't worked out? I can't tell if our failings are due to a bad ethos with how to build a roster, or whether it's just bad decisions sort of kicking the can down the road and impeding true improvement. There's a really nice question, actually. I don't know if it's from Ryan from the Hawks Home Rundown, or whether it's Bryce posting on their account as well. But there was a question basically saying, how do we feel about the Seahawks if nothing else improves this year? If the level we've reached and the regular... That's the one. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. I really like this question because we're obviously not happy with our level of performance when we have a bad game like this, but we seem quite content when we have a good one. So is there an average level between the good days and the bad days, which is acceptable for the first year with this coaching staff? And are the kinds of mistakes and performances we're having acceptable if they keep repeating for the rest of the year? For me, no. And I think this could be John Schneider out at the end of the year if this current level doesn't improve.
Well, here we go. Here's another follow-up from Hawks fan Mattman. If the season continues this way and we only win one or two more games, I'm pretty sure ownership will sack John as their kind if last lever to pull. You know what? We see it a lot. We see GMs, coaches, people get moved on. John's had a fantastic tenure. He helped bring us a Super Bowl. If it doesn't improve, and you look at the gaps in our team, where we're not able to succeed, then there's a distinct possibility that John Schneider could get the boot, because he's the man who said he's running the ship now. He's the one who pulls the trigger on deals. He's the one who's the boss man in charge. So unfortunately, even though that poop rolls downhill from a management point of view, when it comes to an overall review of an organization, the finger pointing always stops at the top, because it's what they do that trickles down to everyone else. So yeah, we could see it happen. And if that happens, Mike Mack stays in, and we have someone who believes in the philosophy of you build your team from the front back. We could see people getting moved, like we said with Rob. We could see fan favourites getting moved just to free up some salary cap, and then they could start rebuilding this team front to back. So
yeah, I think it's key. I think it's key to remember as well that Mike McDonald got a 6-year contract. John Schneider didn't. John Schneider survived. John Schneider survived the off season. Yeah. Mike Mack got a 6-year deal. So if a good point there from Gary, who do you replace John Schneider with? Pop that one up. So I don't necessarily want to get into that on this pod, because this is a very hypothetical scenario, but I think it's a key point that I don't think
Bill Belichick.
No. I don't think it's worth axing him for the sake of axing him. I think if the right candidate was to be available, and you looked at it and said, okay, well, we've got Mike Mack for another 5 years. We need to give him every chance. And these failing drafts, well, I don't want to say failing drafts, actually, because 2 of the last drafts we've had have been really good, in my opinion. Just not at some positional groups. I do think that potentially you look at it and go, let's give Mike Mack every chance of succeeding. It's time for a new leadership from the top. If the right guy's available, I could see them potentially pulling that trigger. Don't necessarily think it's this year, but that could get to be a very hot seat.
Well, here we go. So Bryce from the Hawks on rundown. Unless you think that next year is going to be the first time they have the opportunity of John getting fired if this repeats. He's under contract till 2027. And Jonas, Belichick, oh hell no! I was saying that in jest, my friend. I would not want that man to be any part of our organisation. He's caused us too much pain in the past. But yeah, I think this is going to be a big question mark this season. Next season is where we start really looking at it under a microscope. That's where we'll do a lot more investigation into things. Were there any more questions coming through? Because we've had so many. Thank you so much to everyone.
Tons.
This is you guys are on it. If we lose every single week, we're not going to be able to keep track of all the comments on these videos, mate. So
people just want to stop us complaining. They're trying to interrupt our moaning with questions, I think.
No, they want to moan as well. That's what it is. And I said group therapy. That's what this pod is, and that's what the Discord is as well. Let's keep the therapy going.
Okay, here's another one. This one as well is from Ryan, from the Hawks Zone Rundown. So
that's
AJ Barner's looking good. We don't have another scary receiving threat without DK. JSN will be a solid slot receiver in this league, but was he worth the first rounder? I love a good slot receiver. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. Give me informed Cooper Kupp, because it crowds the box. You have to stop that. Just like establishing the run game, you have to account for that high quality slot receiver. However, establishing that the slot reception threat is much like establishing the run, and we don't do it. So we've got a guy who can be an X factor and elevate our offense immeasurably, and we don't do it. just as we have an outstanding runner in Ken Walker and we poorly utilised him at times. So he still looks like a first-round caliber receiver to me, but we are playing him shackled every game with the plays we are calling. He's also shackled by the fact that we have two number one wide receivers that we like to rotate, targeting. So there are a number of things that go against JSN's level of production right now. None of them, I think, are his fault, because when you think about some of the big plays he's made when we've given him the chance to make big plays, and some of the games that he's absolutely lit up when we've targeted him, he has shown not just flashes, he has been a shining beacon in some games when we have allowed him to be. We are the ones shackling him at the moment, much like we were the ones that stopped ourselves winning or competing in that Bills game. We are our own worst enemy at times, and it definitely applies to JSN. That's my take.
That's very much what I was going to say, but let's also remember, when it comes to the draft, we are drafting people based on their college performance and, the combine. JSN at Ohio State was a fantastic talent. You look at his Rose Bowl game, he blew the lid off that game. Everyone said he would be the first wide receiver taken. We got him. As Mitch said, he in most other offenses. Could you imagine Sean McVay with a JSN in the slot? He made Cooper Kupp one of the premium wide receivers in this league by playing him in the slot and just unlocking the middle of that field. And then they moved him outside, and he's still an issue. If McVay had someone like JSN would be lighting up this league. But unfortunately, we haven't learned how to utilize him. We haven't learned how to utilize, as Mitch said, K9, JSN, Noah Fant. We seem to have this wealth of talent that we just can't use. And I know there's only so many mouths to feed, but unfortunately, JSN seems to be the most starved at the moment. And that's what really, really infuriates me about it, because you spend that much capital on a player like that and don't use them. It's going to get to the end of his rookie contract. And regardless of what we offer him, he might just go, I'm feeling better offers, where I might actually be able to become a superstar. So thanks, but no thanks. I'll take less money and go elsewhere and just be able to actually receive the ball like my job is and score some touchdowns. So yeah, I do think that he's worth it. I just don't think, like Mitch said, we're getting the best usage out of him. Is there anything else that we can bring up from these comments? Because they're still flooding in. If we did super comments, I could quit my job after this pod. We won't do that, by the way. Yeah, there's so many coming in. I think what we'll do, just to give us time to have a look through them all.
I think maybe Discord member musings after that.
Yeah. Well, let's have a quick minute break to talk about our sponsor for the pod, Wraith Energy, who I'd like to say a big thank you and no thank you, because I had a Wraith before the game yesterday and it kept me awake to see that absolute shower of rubbish. If I hadn't had one, I might have fallen asleep in my chair and that would have been less painful. So let's, don't cover up the dome now, mate. We've all seen it.
Feeling exposed.
Let's hear about Wraith.
Let's give a big shout out to our sponsor, Wraith Energy. Wraith is a sugar-free energy drink that comes in these handy-dandy little sachets that you've not got to take in a huge can away with you. Simply mix it with half a litre of water, give it a good shake, and you are ready to go. It is sugar-free. It has all the benefits of pretty much every energy drink you'll have, apart from the fact it doesn't cost you a fortune, and they're very, very honest with what they have in there. You have taurine, caffeine, multiple vitamins, no sugar. And for any of you who try sugar-free energy drinks, usually you'll know they're not the best. Wraith, however, I have tried the majority of the flavors now, and I love every single one. If you want to try Wraith, go to wraithEnergy.com, and when you're going to check out, use code 12TALK for 10% off. You'll thank us later. Go Hawks.
There you go. Big thanks to Wraith for sponsoring the pod again. Thanks to everyone who's used our discount code as well. So 25% of anything that we may get from Wraith goes straight to the Robbing Cancer Trust to help with our fundraising. Look at that beautiful bottle Mitch has got. Mine. I've just washed mine because I've had it out coaching all weekend. There you go. Shall we get to one of our favourite segments now? For just for anyone who's left comments that we've not managed to get to, joining our Discord is the best way to get your questions, comments, feelings out there on a pod, because we do this on every single pod to thank our members of the Discord and for the insight, frustrations, questions they have. So I'll put these out there. After the debacle last week, I've not animated them, but here we go. It's our Discord member musings. There you go. The theme song is still a work in progress. I'm sorry. So I'll get it there one day. Here we go. Discord member musings. So Mitch, do you want to go for the top one, and then we'll do one by one?
Yeah, I'm going to make my screen a little bigger so I can actually read it. Okay. Adam from the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast saying, can it possibly get worse? That's a cheery note. Does D. Williams have any trade value, or should we try stash him on the PS? Certainly there are other better uses for his roster spot. Yeah, I don't think there's any trade value for someone that came in as a specialist. Like you're not gonna find anyone trading for him as a wide receiver or corner, and only we could be so stupid as to have a special team only roster spot. So for me, that's a no. Can it get worse? Oh yes, it can, and yes, it probably will. There'll be a worse defeat than this year. Don't you worry about it. Hopefully, we have a few more wins before we see that, but genuinely, like the floor and the ceiling for this team this year are so far apart that we can have such a good game, and we can have a real humbling the next week, which we've had with the Falcons and then the Bills. So, as sad as I am about yesterday, and as frustrated as I am, I really do think that won't be the last time we see it this year.
I'm getting bored of the D. Williams conversation we have every week. I know you said that they're trying to play the numbers game and the averages and just catch the ball and run it. This was on our X. I vented a lot of frustration on X last night. I'm sick of him seeing a ball and going, I'll let that bounce over my head. It'll be fine. Maybe it'll bounce back towards me or just go straight out. It never does. It never ever does. It always gains another 5 to 10 yards and puts us in the worst possible field position for a punt return. D. Williams, you are a professional football player. You're better than I'll ever be. But get in the bin or learn to catch a ball and run it.
That was what I expected you to say, so I found that really funny.
Here ends the sermon. Right, Ryan from the Discord, utterly pathetic from the O-line, receivers non-existent without DK, run game not there, mostly due to the O-line, couldn't stop anything on defense, doesn't get much worse, really.
Yeah, it was
valid
pathetic.
points.
Yeah, they're all valid points. I struggle to really disagree. The thing that was really pathetic from the O-line was how bad they were at creating running lanes. We really didn't get anything established in the run game, and a lot of that was to do with inferior O-line play. Yeah, it can get much worse though. I don't subscribe to that. It can't get worse. It really can.
You are the pod prophet of doom, mate. It's like
sorry, mate.
We're always so positive. I mean, even though we're laughing, this is like laughing or we cry on this pod right now. And I'm very much on board with Mitch. We've said like this defense is going to take time to gel and understand what is required of them. Offensively, I think we've overanalyzed the fact that the O-line is not it. Everyone is fully aware of that, but as we were told in previous pods, we're not the only ones, same as with the tackling. I had to slip it in there, Mitch, I'm sorry. But yeah, it could get worse. We could see a team like Arizona who are actually playing some decent football from time to time come into Lumen and just, curb stomp us, which would be so painful, but it would highlight a heck of a lot. And aren't they currently top of our division?
I can't talk about that. Too much pain associated with that.
I know. Well, there we go. Let's go back to Adam. He's commenting on this. Lockett was only targeted 3 times and caught 2 of them. One of them was called back. This wasn't about the receiving corps not doing their job. Gino was 21 from 29. The problem was the play calling and Gino. The only drive we looked good was in hurry up. We scored, and then they decided not to do it again. This loss is just as much on the coaches as the players. Yeah,
I completely agree with all of it. That statement's very real and true.
Yeah, and that's it. Gino start 21 from 29. Yeah, cool. That's 21 completed passes of 29 attempts. 21 completed passes, of which 15 of them came to nothing.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing. So cool. Your accuracy looks amazing. But what did you do with those throws? Nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, so agree with that. The next one, I've dedicated now a page to 2 of our so I've got a page for Gary and a page for Jonas. So this is a page for Gary because Gary he's been on the pod. He was a fantastic guest. He's very active in our Discord and in our comments. So Gary, this one's for you, sir. Mitch, I'll let you read the longest one.
Oh, nice. Thanks, mate. So
get
the O-line is
closer.
Yeah, it's small for me. The O-line is still an issue when it comes to the run game. We've touched on that a lot actually already this pod. Is it a personnel issue or a coaching issue or a combination of both? I want to break this up into a few because there's a few questions along the way. We'll never answer all of them if we don't. So, both to the personnel and coaching issue, I think there are some square pegs and round holes on that O-line. I don't want to see Lake and Tomlinson back. I don't necessarily want to see Bradford used in our scheme anymore. I'd like to see our starting 2 tackles next year filled with a gap between them, filled with players that are for this offense, made for purpose. I want to see that rather than it patched up. But I also think we can coach what we have better because there's enough talent there, whether they're good scheme fits or not, to be able to do better than we are currently doing. And actually, some of the players who aren't a scheme fit are also good run blockers. So the fact that we can't run block well defies logic because surely players like Bradford could be used better to create some running lanes in these games. So yes to a combination of both for me.
Yeah. I'll let you rattle through these, mate. You can have this one.
Fine. Yeah. So while the run game is inconsistent, it makes the offense one-dimensional and very easy for good teams to defend against. Couldn't agree more with that statement. Mm-hmm. The running backs in this team are good, but the O-line is not clicking. So the running backs don't have good gaps to run through. It's very frustrating to watch. As we know, K9 has the potential to hit home runs, but has struggled to gain more than a yard of play. That's I think a lot of the fan base would resonate with. That is one of the big frustrations that we have a running back in his 3rd year now for Ken.
Yes, next year will be his final year of his rookie deal, I think.
Yeah, third year for Ken. He should be now, absolutely tearing the league apart with the talent he has. And like Gino, he is held back by a dodgy O-line. So completely agree there. Defensively, again, we struggled to contain the run. Explosive plays were taken away, but the Bills were able. The Bills were able to consistently gain good yardage. It seemed so with the D line. I
thought the run defense would improve.
Yeah, but it's still really struggling. Yeah. And why is that? So we've obviously picked up and added to that D line, and we've got some specialists in there as well. But I think other teams' other teams' good O lines are still dominating. I don't know anymore.
There was a comment last night. I can't remember if it was on our Discord or it was a reply to one of the posts on X, where it was quite simply every offensive O line or D line we're coming up against is just bigger and stronger than what we have.
Yeah,
that's the long and short of it. But when you looked at the O line or the D line even for Buffalo, Ed Oliver, fantastic player. Gregory Rousseau, absolute unit, huge. You look at how high his hand was to deflect that first pass from Gino, and that tells you a lot that you need to know. I think defensively, we couldn't accommodate for anything. There wasn't much adjustment, which surprised me from Mike Mack, because I posted this. They seem to have this. They found a really weird chink in our armor, which was just the quick out sort of sweep from the running back off the edge of our tackle, and they were away for sort of 10 yards at a time. And they played that twice, 2 times in a row, the exact same play. And I think both of them were first downs. Cook absolutely cooked us yesterday with his receiving, with his running, and they just seemed to dissect everything, where I think we were in such disarray because of how the game had gone. They were just using it to pick apart. So it was like, it was trying to put out fires where they're like, right, they've spotted this chink, let's fill that gap. But by then adjusting that way, it left gaps everywhere else, where with the Bills playing so much zone, there was no gap. They just kept consistently doing the same thing because they knew that we couldn't, pick it apart. It's like it was struggling. I don't know why it is. I just think yesterday was just one of those panic setting, and we didn't know what to do. We were just trying to desperately firefight, and it just wasn't working.
It reminded me a little bit of our season opener against the Rams last year, where Stafford just kept hitting the same spot on our defense, and we just couldn't seem to stop it. It was short and intermediate throws in the over the middle. Exactly that. Trauma.
Yeah.
But it did feel like a lack of adjustment there, kind of, or predictable adjustments, and then having counter moves for it, and it was a really good Bills performance without getting out of second gear. We didn't ask enough questions of them, but yeah, no, not a good one.
I was going to read that one, mate. I was going to take the short one.
Oh, I thought you were going to leave me for one of these.
You know what? You can do all Gary's. I'll do all of Jonas's. There you go. I'll give you that one, mate.
Okay, cool. Well, this one's a nice, easy one anyway. We again saw frustration boil over on the sideline. We've touched on this, yeah. The poise Coach McDonald talks about was not there, and I wonder how that is affecting the play of the team. I don't mind the frustration boiling over. I want to see them care. I want to see leaders step up and hold people accountable. We got a bit of that. I do think that Mike McDonald will have some serious concerns over the lack of poise from some of our team, and also the way we've kind of capitulated in that game. Like, we really did just lose our way massively, and showed no real hope of regaining it. That's a serious problem, because you need to be able to put bad plays behind you and just get back out on the next drive and do your best and keep trying to score. Keep trying to stop your opponent scoring. You really do have to break it down to what is in front of you. What can you do on this drive, whether you're on O or D? And we seriously just let that game get on top of us yesterday.
Yeah. There was a few points for me sort of yesterday, and we glossed it. Well, I said we glossed over it. We went into it with the Geno thing. As a sportsman, professional or otherwise, you have to have an extremely short memory. Whether that's a short memory for a play or a series of play that succeeded or ones that failed. Because even if they succeeded, you can't be riding high on that because complacency sets in. You need to find that middle ground. If something goes wrong, you can't dwell on that because that will affect you and the rest of your team going forward. I think, like you said, everything just capitulated here. I think it was summed up with the Gino on the sideline, Derek Hall, and one of the choice things that was caught on the broadcast mic, as well as Tom Brady not really caring what he said. Check out our X feed. I highlighted a few of them, but also Spoon, who I can't remember who we stopped. I think it was Khalil Shakir on the sideline, hit him, even though I think he was pretty close to a first down or had made the first down, and called him a choice amount of words. For me, that's not poise. That's not needed. If you're in the position you're in, I don't care what your attitude is, what your persona is within the team as a trash talker. You don't hit someone as a second tackler, call him what he called him, and have a swagger. If anything, you hit them, you get back in position as quickly as possible. I think the poise isn't there, whether that's poise to win a game or poise when you're losing a game. You need to find that middle ground so you stay consistent throughout, and we've not got that at the moment. Go on, last one from Gary, and then I'll get on to Jonas's.
Okay, so Gary's said on the last point here that unfortunately the performance was reminiscent of the Giants game this season or the Steelers game last year. That's a really interesting group of games that have stood out. Steelers game last year, the Giants game this year, and the Bills game. That's three big heaps of PTSD. I'm questioning the heart. Yeah, thanks for that, mate. I'm questioning the heart of some of these players. That's a key point. Mike Mack talks about wanting a physical team. I don't see it from the majority of these players, and I'm wondering who will step up to the plate. I'm finding it difficult to see who that's going to be. Who do you think? This is really interesting. The heart of the players and the physicality, those are two really Seahawky kind of traits that we've loved to watch over the year, being this uncompromising team that just hits the snot out of you all game long and plays with heart, whether we're playing from a losing position or whether we've got a stranglehold on a game. There is just heart personified. None of that right now. Both of them, none of it. So I think that's a really interesting question. So who do we think it's going to come from? Who is going to step up and do it? Because to your point, actually, with Witherspoon, I saw that moment that you've just discussed as him trying to G himself up, to talk himself back into the sort of player he was last year.
Well, he had to do something because he whiffed on so many tackles. His cleats seemed to be just like slick tires, basically. I posted this on X as well, where we were talking about tackle technique. It was me and Ben going low and wrapping the legs. The only person that seemed to want to try and do it was Spoon, and that's because he slipped on two of his attempts, and the only thing he could do was flail out the legs. Regardless of whether it's trying to G himself up, too little too late there, in my opinion. I'm sorry, if you want to be the heartbeat of this defense in the secondary, you don't whiff on tackles. You play with that aggression, that violence. I think Spoon's been missing that this year. I don't know why. It's really starting to vex me. Go on, who do you think it should come from, Mitch? And I'll give you my 2 cents as well afterwards.
Well, I think Ernest Jones is in there to do exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the key things about that pickup is that he is that and has been that in this league. So I think he can be a huge part of that. This game came a bit soon for him. I think we threw him out there and for the lack of a better option.
100%.
And I feel like we kind of hung him out to dry a little bit. He still had some nice moments, but he didn't have a good game for the Titans against Bills the week before, and he certainly didn't have a better one here. But he still had some nice moments. But Ernest Jones, I think, can be that. I really want to see more from Leonard Williams, because Leonard Williams leads from the front with his performances. But you very rarely see him sort of beating the drum and pounding his chest and rallying the troops. So Although he had called some people out earlier this year, but I want to see it on the field, not in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So Leonard Williams and Ennis Jones for me, the two.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some people to bring this team kicking and screaming. I think on the offense, it's evident that it's going to be DK, who is just going to try and make stuff happen. He will have some hiccups where he may drop a ball, try to fight for yards or whatever, but he's going to be that person trying to lead that. Let's just feed me the ball, let me do my stuff. Defensively, again, I think sort of big cat. I think Jaron Reed showed that he's the person to get people to pull their bootstraps up. But again, I don't think he's done a lot this season. Fantastic leader, veteran, but he's not exactly, world beater. I think Julian Love, I'd like to see more from him because everyone speaks really highly of him. He's obviously defensive captain, even without being named defensive captain in most games, but I'm not seeing a lot from him either. And Spoon, for everything that he was last season, he's a shell of himself. If I can just talk about the physicality of the team, what did you think about Reek's game yesterday?
Wishy-washy, inconsistent. Made a few nice plays. Looked like a player that was coming back into the team after being injured as well. A little bit tentative in his. He didn't bring much thump to the tackles, but then he never really has been that guy either. So yeah, it looked like a guy who was a bit hesitant to get hurt again. For me,
one pass break up on Coleman in the end zone, trash talked him, and then Coleman just took that ball away from him for his touchdown. And you know what? I really like Keon Coleman. I think he's a great character. He's a great receiver. Loved him at Florida State. But the fact he took it off him, and I think the way Coleman reacted was just sort of like little word, bit of a nudge, tap on the head, and then off he went.
On the head, yeah.
Yeah, I think Reek just doesn't embody that physicality for me. People were scared to throw it in, but I think now people are starting to go, yeah, just throw it at him anyway. I'd rather chance it. Right, so that's Gary. Jonas, you're up next, my friend. So, in hindsight, with a 3-0 start, a bad thing for the Seahawks as it set a certain kind of expectation that this team just can't reach right now. And is Seattle officially in a rebuild? I think after this season, we might see some building blocks being pulled out and replaced.
Yeah, I think it was bad for the reasons stated in that it got hopes up, but I also think it might end up being a little bit bad when we look at our record at the end of the year. If we don't make the playoffs and we've accumulated 7 or 8, 9 wins, and we miss out on everything. But I mean, at the same time, it is also good that our first time coach in the NFL gets some wins under his belt. It would be far worse if we finished the season 2-15, had a high draft pick, but our first time NFL coach had to fight tooth and nail to win in this league. So you can't have it always.
Yeah. Second one from Jonas. Considering the circumstances and defense as a whole, Josh Jobe, or Joby, as they were calling him on the broadcast yesterday, just reminds me of a Scottish friend calling me a poop. You Joby. Played a good game against the Bills for a player coming off the practice squad, and he even picked off Josh Allen. First interception for Josh Allen this season. Do you consider him a corner the Seahawks should keep? And could he even replace Trey Brown? Neither of them, in my opinion, are up to scratch as a starter. Job's played well, but then he got absolutely burned on a route and just couldn't keep up with a receiver, which sort of shows his downside there. I think he as development, fine. I'm getting to that point now, which we said start of the season. If we are going to not tank, but start to develop this team and the people behind our starters, we need to start playing these people more. I think Job may warrant keeping on the roster. If anything, I'd prefer to see him on that roster rather than D. Williams, and keep Trey Brown as well and let him battle it out.
Yeah, I agree with your comments.
And then lastly, I love how creative Ryan Grubb's offense can be, but going into the Bills game, his game plan was off again. If players turn to coaches to correct their mistakes, who does Coach Grubb turn on to fix his approach? Leslie Frazier, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, I feel like he should know. In some of our games this season, he's been able to turn it around and identify where we can be better. I think when a lot of the fundamental issues come from not being able to compete at the O-line, your hands are a little tied in things you can do that will completely regenerate the plan and suddenly start getting you some success, because the foundations of what we do on offense stem from giving the quarterback time or creating a crease or a lane. So you can't do either of those things, consistently. Pretty hard to adjust a game plan to suddenly start working. However, I would agree. Like, Leslie Frazier's in there with all the experience in the world in this league. He should be the one. He should be the one for me that helps the most in these situations. We need to rely on that experience. It's a young coaching team as well as a new coaching team for us. So, yeah.
I think Bryce has said this in either our Discord or one of the comments previously. If you have a bad O-line, as a coach, it is your job to help accentuate your game plan to accommodate that. I don't think that's happening necessarily at the moment. Like I said, he's using the wrong players at the wrong times with the wrong plays. But then partially, and this is probably the first time I'm going to say this, I think the blame also lies on Gino, because these plays are being drawn up, and I think if we could get all 22 here, I'd probably end up having to divorce my wife because I'd spend far too much time digesting it and dissecting it. There's a lot of plays that you see out there where Gino is just missing the open man, and he's trying to throw it to proven pass catchers. I mean, he did try yesterday to Chenault, and that just came straight off his numbers. But luckily, I say luckily, there was a penalty anyway. But then there was that play I mentioned earlier with JSM that he tried to get it to, and there was an open player in yards of space, and Gino just made the wrong read. I think going forward, I'm going to be trying to look at these games through a lens of, was that a bad play call or was it a bad option from Gino? Did he pick the wrong receiver? Did he call the wrong audible?
Well, I think you'll see some examples of both, but I think it's good to compartmentalize what the fundamental thing that went wrong was, because otherwise the lazy. But in our scenario, I think it's often the case, but it is still lazy to say, "Oh, the O-line can't get it together."
Yeah.
There are still bad decisions being made from coordinators and quarterbacks alike.
It's a collection
and
of
mistakes
things.
and mistakes on route running. We're only a few weeks removed from DK messing up a route, and so there's far more to it than any one component, and often multiple on players as well.
There you go. So that was our Discord member musings. I think just to underline this pod, as negative as it's been at times, I feel like a weight has been lifted. My shoulders feel a lot less heavy right now because we've managed to get a lot out in the open. And thank you everyone who's joined us to watch this and to say your piece. I'm sorry we couldn't get everyone's comments in there, but I'll be very honest, they're so many. So we'll try and sort of get back to them later on. If you do want to have a comment read out rather than trying to fight for a position, in the comment section there, or down there as it is, by all means, join the Discord, and we will get them in our Discord member musings. As you can see, we have some pretty consistent people that come in every time with some fantastic points. This season, for me, now is pure, let's just build. I don't care if we lose every game, and people will say I'm not a true fan, but I'm looking at this with a future lens, just an eye on the future. let's build, let's fix things, let's start looking at what we need to build on for next year and really push on that way. I really want to see some of these rooks in. I'd quite happy start throwing people like Lemaya in to get some reps at a professional level, see what he's like at left guard. You know, I'd like to see a bit more Bobo as well. I know he's not a rook, but I'd like to see him in there. Kenny McIntosh, give him a go, see what he can do in this running game. Just really start to. Honestly, I love Kenny Mack, and he is just non-existent. And I think it's time that we really start having to look at this, and we really start having to see what we've got on this team. Mitch, have you got any closing thoughts, sir?
Yeah, you just said there that you felt like you got a lot off your chest and you're feeling better. I, however, hate life, and I won't feel okay. I won't feel okay again until we win. But no,
all right, Negatron.
No, I just thought I'd complete the vibe that I've kicked out this whole way. No, I still really believe in this coaching staff, and I love what we are trying to build with Grubb and Durday and Mike Mack. I really am bought into to what we're doing. I just am frustrated that we are not, as a baseline, hitting people, showing heart, and getting ourselves up for these big games when big contenders turn up at our stadium. That's the fundamentals of why I'm disappointed. I've not lost faith. I'm just being very reactive.
Yeah, and I think everyone is in a very reactive vein. I'm going to sign this off by saying a big thank you to everyone who's joined us live today. If you are new or you just want to spread the love, by all means, you can like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell. You can follow us on Instagram, X. We have a Facebook group as well. You can get involved with all of that. If you want to appear as a guest, by all means, send us a DM. You can slide straight in there. Mitch or I will happily pop you in the calendar, and you can come and say your piece as well. But from me and from my podcast partner in crime, Mitch, that man there with the outstanding new haircut. Yeah, I'm just jealous, mate. My wife won't let me do that anymore. I'm not allowed.
Really?
Yeah, I still look like a thug. I don't know why. It's probably because I've got a massive head. That's all it is. She just doesn't like it. Just accentuates the dome. But yeah, from us too. Until next time, catch us on the socials. Feel free to get in the Discord. Let's end this with a massive Go Hawks and hope that our next pod is much more positive. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.